Thank you, Suki. Now I'm supposed to do some dissection. It should be actually a scientific process. You cut up things and expose what appears in front of you. I am dissecting and I see total injustice, total oppression in what has happened to both Roy and Solang. I don't know whether you noted this. Neither of them said that they had been charged under the Parliamentary Elections Act. If you have been asked to visit the police station for an arrestable offence, you have the right to ask them, what offence have I committed before you take me? And Roy, they can't sort of hold you back and not release you because they have not preferred any charge against you. Only if they charge you and they ask you for your defence, are you then in a situation where you are an accused person and you're obliged to answer their questions. If they not prefer a charge against you, you have no obligation to answer them. All right, those are just preliminary points I'm making. Let me go to the cold letter of the law. What they are alleged to have committed is a violation of the Parliamentary Elections Act, Section 80. Now let me just, can I have Section 80 on the board? Yeah, you can see the section in question. Prohibition of canvassing on polling day and eve of polling day. Now the relevant section or relevant provision of the act in question or the section is 81A. Let us start with reading 81. No person shall on polling day and eve of polling day at an election in an electoral division. Electoral division in our case, of course, is Bukit Batok. In an electoral division, by word, message, writing, or in any other manner, endeavor to persuade any person to give or dissuade any person from giving his vote at the election. In simple terms, it means you can't encourage somebody to vote or you can't discourage somebody from voting. That's all it means in very simple terms. Now, there was a debate on this section in Parliament, and both Lee Hsien Loong, who was our Prime Minister, and the Minister for Law, Shanmugam, spoke on this particular section. And if I can have Lee Hsien Loong, so Lee Hsien Loong's speech in Parliament is exhibited there. Legal changes were introduced in 2010 to turn the eve of polling day for both parliamentary and presidential elections into a cooling off day on which no campaigning is permitted. Now the word campaigning has to be emphasized. And you saw the caption just now for section 80, it is canvassing. The word canvassing doesn't appear in the body of the section in question. All right, what appears is you cannot persuade somebody, you cannot dissuade somebody. Now let me go back. Legal changes were introduced in 2010 to turn the eve of polling day for both parliamentary and presidential elections into a cooling off day on which no campaigning is permitted. You all know what campaigning means. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong justified the changes as enabling voters to think dispassionately about the candidate's stance on issues raised and reducing the chance of public disorder. Lee Hsien Loong and his father before that have been thinking or have been assuming to themselves we're all children. We can't think. That's how these words came about. We are mature adults, you're 21 plus. Only then are you qualified to vote. Can't you think for yourselves? Whatever somebody may persuade you or somebody may dissuade you. Let me just go on about the candidate's stance on issues raised and reducing the chance of public disorder. In all our parliamentary history in Singapore, have there been any instances of public disorder during election time? You tell me. I'm old enough to know, right from 59 till 2016, a number of elections have been held. Not a single instance of any public disorder. Why this sudden urge by the PB government to restrict free speech, which is guaranteed by our constitution, to restrain people from talking to their friends, or even in a public arena, to canvass for somebody? But the law has been passed, so we have to accept it. But the rationale behind it is zero. On the eve of and on polling day itself, election advertising is prohibited. So newspapers will lose advertising revenue, you know. Their own newspaper will lose revenue. All right. That's another point. On the eve and on polling day itself, the election advertising is prohibited, though the following activities remain unaffected. Now, this is important. what is not affected by this provision in the law. Distributing a book or promoting the sale of a book for not less than its commercial value if the book was planned to be published regardless of whether there was to be an election. Now this doesn't apply in our case. Can I go down, Suki? All right. And conveyancing one's own political views, this is the important, this is the pivotal provision in this particular section, okay? Whether you're guilty or not guilty is decided on this particular provision. Conveying one's own political views on a non-commercial basis to another individual by telephone or electronic transmission. Now this is a speech Lee Hsien Loong himself had made. And a similar identical speech was made in Parliament by Shanmugam as well. And what they have said is also embodied in section 78C, I think. Can I have 78C on the board, please? 78B, Suki.
We don't have that.
You don't have that. Now I'll read it.
Yeah.
What they have said is embodied in the Act itself. The expression here is the telephonic or electronic transmission, this is an exemption, by an individual. Now, So Lang is an individual, so is Roy. They are individuals, they are communicating something. The telephonic or electronic transmission by an individual to another individual. Another individual can mean also a group of individuals, they're all individuals. Of the first mentioned individuals, that is So Lang's own political views on a non-commercial basis. Non-commercial basis here means So Lang is giving her own views on matters without expecting any payment for her views being expressed. So she's not a professional counselor, as it were, on election matters. So she's not asking for a fee. Hey, I'm giving my opinion how to vote. You please pay me $100. So that's non-commercial basis. Anybody has the right. I can lift up my phone and talk to my daughter, talk to my son, talk to my colleague in the office. Hey, elections tomorrow, who are you going to vote? I'm going to vote so and so. So this is the exception given. They have seen the ridiculous nature of the amendments they have brought to the Parliamentary Elections Act. So they can't take you to such laughable extremes, you see. So they gave this particular escape clause, as it were. So if you are speaking to somebody, individual to another individual of the first mentioned individual's own political views on a non-commercial basis, you have not committed an offense. So far, neither So Lang nor Roy have been preferred a charge. Neither of them need to have answered. When they questioned So Lang or Roy, the law gives them both the right to refuse to answer. Only if they are charged do they have an obligation to answer. In the obligation to answer, they can either choose to remain silent or give whatever explanation they have on the charge that is being preferred against them. Of course, our law was amended further in 1976. A person who is accused and charged with an offence is under an obligation to answer, say what his defence is. And a poor innocent man like Roy, who has never been used to being pulled in and being remanded and being interrogated strongly by police officers, will lose his balance. And as he himself confessed just now, he lost his balance. Now you've got to retain your cool. And you've got to be prepared that any time the police will call you. Now, as Roy said, they are extra careful now. They just can't pull you in, throw you to the lockup, give you a few beatings, switch on the coolest level of the aircon, and expect answers. In history, of course, I'm not quoting history, what has been happening to people like So Lang, like our former Solicitor General Francis Yao. I'm not talking about myself, that's another history, by the way. So, you have a right, when you are pulled in by the police, not to answer any questions unless they prefer a charge against you. Point number one. Point number two, you are entitled to communicate with your family. The moment you are, they have to facilitate the obtaining of a telephone for you so that you can inform your family. They can't deny that. So all these are aspects of our law and criminal procedure which must be borne in mind. Coming back to what is facing us, as I said, they have not been charged yet. Even if they're charged, my view is they can't be held liable as having committed a breach of the Parliamentary Elections Act, Section 80. They come within the exception of Section 78C, as bolstered by Lee Hsien Loong's speech itself. Lee Hsien Loong himself has said it in Parliament. Is a speech in Parliament admissible in a court of law when you're trying to determine the guilt of a person? The answer is yes. We have an act called the Interpretation Act. Section 9, those who are interested in the sections, Section 9A, which provides that Hansard, the parliamentary debates, is called sometimes as Hansard, following the English name for it. Parliamentary debates can be used as evidence to convey what the intention of the act was, what it is supposed to mean. It's very clear from the speeches of the two ministers and 78C itself that you can communicate your views to another individual, so long as done nothing but inform what her own view is on this position. So in that sense, I think, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me, there's no evidence of any offense having been committed by them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Raman.